Hello, once more, welcome to the land of dreams that is Leopard Street. A few videos ago, and there'll be a link somewhere, I showed putting white lights into this little building, little coloured lights. Since then, it's been sat down the back, doing nothing, because I hadn't had it wired up. So today, I'm going to wire it up. Mostly goes okay. There's a reason it's still here rather than over there, which I'll come to. That'll be another video. So, wiring a building up that's got lights and making it work. Another train starting up, I can hear in the background. Yeah, let's have a look. Train. To the desk. Okay, here we are in under Layoutville. This is the board C controller. What I need to do is not lean on that because that's not secure. I need to drop this board down, so there's a little catch at the back, which I can just swivel, and then this will drop down. Because in order to power this up, I need to modify this controller. So bring it over here a little bit. I'll adjust the height slightly and we'll zoom in on it slightly. Let's have a little look. So this, and drop slightly. Let's have a little, yeah. This is one of my board controllers. It's not powered on at the moment. This is board C. Board C is quite basic. Board C doesn't have any points, so the servo socket is empty. It doesn't yet have any lights, so the socket for the TLC LED driver is also empty. But it does have block detection, which is why this one's populated. This needs to come out because I need to add another wire to it so I can control the lights. So the first thing I do is I get hold of it slightly more robustly, unplug that, which is the power connector. I can remove that because there's a screw behind it, so I take the screen off. This comes out quite easily, and then I've got to take the ESP32 itself out. Now the reason I've got to remove that is the antenna goes through a hole. So short of completely unscrewing the antenna, I can't take this bit off with it. Not a huge problem. I've got spares. I've got another one I can use when I'm testing this. So it's 4 screws out. Dropping one, obviously. There's annoying ones right here. Ah, there we are. You hear it land, but you can't see it. Right. It's this one, top. See if I can get the thing out. And then this last one at the bottom, which is a bit easier to get the screw out of because I can just do that with it. So that's the circuit board. It's fairly straightforward. All I need to do is find a spare pin to solder some bits to. So, to the desk. Alright, so here we are at the desk. Here's the board. I put a spare ESP32 module in. So what exactly am I going to be doing here? Well, I've got over here ESP32, and over here I've got a shop, and that shop has got several lights in it, and it's got 4 wires coming out. And what I need to do is connect the two. Now this, I'm going to have a data out pin, but it's 3.3 volts. Now we know that works because I've tested it. So, what I need is to put one of these pixels here near to this board. It doesn't really matter where, but I've printed a little bracket. The idea is that's got a screw hole so I can mount it. It's going to get one of the little pixels in the middle, and I've got some bits to hold the wires. And then once that's set up, I can slather it in hot glue so it stays together. That's that one. That's going to have a data outline, which is now 5 volts. This is brilliant. This is the bit I want to get working first. I want to be able to basically have this fire up with a neopixel and have it light green. I'm not going to be controlling it, I'm just going to wire it up. But what this is going to do, I've got around here somewhere, is feed into a little board like this. I don't normally use this prototyping board. Ian over at Trains of Thought has used it quite a bit, and I thought, I'm going to give it a go since I've got a whole box of the stuff. What this is going to do is connect into this board. So we're going to have a 5 volt signal go in there, and we have a signal come out the other end. And on here, there are going to be 4 of these little connectors. And we're going to have a power line and a ground line running through. And then that goes into that one, that comes out of there, and then these are going to be connected like so. And that is the connector pin for, bring the shop back in, the shop. So that is what that's going to plug into. So that goes into that one. And by plugging something into this one, the input goes in, goes through the shop, and its output goes in, and that energizes the second one. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So the shop is going to be number 1. Number 2 will be the library, number 3 will be the cinema, possibly, and number 4 will be the little news kiosk that's going to go and sit opposite them. But, put that back out of the way for a minute. That's going to come later. What I need to do is get this bit here working first. So I need to see, on here, what pins I can use. So I'm going to make a note of what pins I'm using, and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so I've had a little look. So the thing has 0 to 39 GPIOs. 37 and 38, according to the list I've got, don't exist. So I'm guessing they use something internal. We have a few things you need to be aware of with this thing. So I put little question marks next to the pins that you can use, but you need to be careful with. So they're ones to use if you don't have a choice. Little X means on this particular board you can't get at that pin. It's not exposed anywhere. There's a whole bunch of them used by its internal memory, which weirdly you can get at, but if you use them you'll cause all sorts of problems. I think that's so you can program the memory on it. Not bothered by that. And I've marked out what I'm using on here. So we've got LED data, clock, latch, and output enable. That drives the... I've actually got one of them. I've got one of them relatively close to hand. That drives one of these, which is my lighting controller board. So that's basically those 4 lines there. Get rid of that out of the way. Don't need that. The servos use the I2C, which is those 2. With an enable line, and then the inputs use the an interrupt line over here. Some of them are input only, so they have no use at all. So really, there's a few left over. I just need to look at roughly where they are, you see, because what I want, I'm wanting the power and everything to come out this top end. I need to be able to get a 5 volt line, which I can, and a ground line, which I can, there at the top. So ideally, I want a data line that comes out the top there. And the ones I'm thinking of, I'll bring me a little glass around here so I can see what I'm doing, is in this area here. Now there is pin 25, which is that one, is what I'm thinking of for driving a neopixel, and that is there. So I can colour that in red, and if you flip over the board, it goes all the way to there, because what I've learned from experience here. I'm just going to check. So that is that line there. And the only thing connected to that is the pin, so that line is available. Brilliant. Now, normally I'd solder a connector to this. Here I'm not. Basically, there isn't really enough space. So what I'm going to be doing is 3 wires soldered to this. The wires will loop through that, and then they are going to go into, I'm going to break one of these off now. One of these, doesn't really matter which one I suppose, I'm going to use that one. Going to go into that. Yeah, whichever way around it goes doesn't matter on here. It could be something like that on there. Input one side, output the other. The input will be 3 wires because it needs to be. The output is only going to be 1. The reason being, I go back to my little drawing. Yes, I need power and ground, but they are going to come from somewhere else. So that is plus 5 volt, and that is ground. So I'm just going to take the data signal over to that. This means I can wire it up to whatever I want. In theory, I want the ground to be common. It does actually common through the rest of the system. All the DC grounds are connected on the layout. So I'm going to break out the soldering iron, and I should be back. Okay, I'm back. One thing I've just done off camera, I've worked out how long a piece of wire I need for where this is going to be. This sits on the board there, and this pixel thing is going to be a little bit above it. So there's space on the board to do that, which I didn't realise. So there we go. So the first thing I'm going to do, flux on that, is tin the back of this thing, which... And I decided it's probably worth speeding this section up. Feel free to hum some music if you so desire. Basically, this is literally just soldering some wires onto the back of this little thing here, checking out various bits of it work, and getting it stuck to the board. Now, normally I would put a plug and socket arrangement on the board, and I would be using flexible cable for this. However, this is going to get screwed to a piece of plywood, so it's not going to get moved around very much. So I'm using single core, which is just a little bit easier to work with onto the strip board. Also, the strip board for the board controller doesn't really have space to put another connection socket on. This is a modification I'll probably be doing to all of the boards. To be honest, this is now getting to the point I need to get a custom printed circuit board design done, get some boards ordered, and get them on here. There is one further bit of experimentation I want to do before I do that. I've been having fun and games with the ESP32s. I'm tempted to have a go back to Raspberry Pi Pico microcontrollers. I'm probably going to stick with the ESP32s. I just need to have a little bit of a think about that before I do some printed circuit boards. That they're not going to be any smaller than this. They're going to be, in fact, because I want them to be exactly the same size to screw to exactly the same mountings. But things like this neopixel will be incorporated onto those boards. Then there will be plugs and socket arrangements and so on and so forth, which will just make life a little bit simpler. I had some fun and games here getting the green wire to actually solder to it. This wire, allegedly, it's pre-tinned. And as you've just noticed there, I managed to solder the thing without it being connected through the little mounting bracket, so I had to take it off and do it again. I suspect I have got some really dodgy, cheap solder here, which is also not helping, because the way it just blobs up. I think a combination of that and the soldering iron, I have a few replacement bits of equipment to obtain, shall we say, so I can stop blaming tooling. Anyway, this is just about done. We shall cut back to the real time. I do that way. Come on, through there. You know you want to. Get in there. Right. Hey. Well, it's gone through. It's twist. And of course, it's just come straight off the back. Urgh. Right. I'm going to be back in a minute. Right. Here we are, after much swearing, resoldering and cursing with hot glue. Be thankful you didn't see that. The air turned bluer than a blue thing. This is now working. This is the Adafruit NeoPixel test library, told it's got a single LED connected to it. I've now got to integrate this code into the actual board, and then I've got to reinstall it, and then we'll see how it works. So I'm going to spend a bit of time faffing with code. You don't really need to see that, it's not particularly interesting. Mostly because it's not something that would be particularly portable to anybody else's usage. It's very, very specific to the layout. So I'm going to do that. We're going to come back and we're going to see how it works. So I'll catch you in a little bit when I reinstall this thing. Okay, Back down here, back installed. Little board's up here. This green wire goes off down to a coil of wire, which is down here. Not doing much. Switch it on, see what happens. Okay, so that to work. So get a red light initially. Powers up, goes through its connection sequence. And then I've told it basically light up in blue. It's just the blue element coming on. Basically in sync with the heartbeat LED. So that's working. It only knows about one LED. So I now need to make the little module board that the coil of wire is going to connect to. Power that up. I'm going to have to print a little mounting for it eventually, but I'm going to power it up without that to start with the shop connected. And I'm going to see if I can make that work. So, get back to that. And once again, speeding up. This ended up as a little bit of a comedy of errors. I was attempting to use this prototyping board really because I thought it might be slightly simpler. I've got it, it might be slightly easier to mount. I ended up with all sorts of trouble with the... again, I suspect it's a mix of the soldering iron, the solder, and obviously incompetence. So this, you're busy watching me playing around with this, trying to be... I'm going to make this work. This is going to work. And in the end, I just realised I was talking Solder Bridge City where I didn't want them. So, well, you'll see the results in a few minutes. But yes, we'll leave this running just as a warning to others, and also because it explains why something changes shortly. In theory, this was a good idea. It's just in practice it didn't work very well. But the thinking here is I've got this little board I can connect 4 buildings to. They'll daisy chain between each other. I can skip connectors by putting a wire jumper in, so it's not too big a deal. I thought, yeah, I can do this. I can do that. I can make this work. This is not going to defeat me. And then it defeated me. What was happening was solder was just blobbing through. So, yeah. Okay, here we are. With a somewhat depressing predictability, is the strip board version that works. I gave up on this. I was just getting huge blobs of solder coming through the holes. I suspect it's just the soldering iron is. So that's that. It has an input side, which I'm just going to write a little bit more clearly on here. In, and an output side. Out. So I need to hook that up. 5 volts, ground, and the data in, which is the green wire. Need to work out where it's going to go. Although to practice, I'm just going to use the other end of the green wire. I'm just going to crimp both ends of it. And plug the house in. So I'm going to go and do that. Right, after much faffing, this wouldn't be Leopard Street without something going awry. I can't find my 1602 red and black wire. I have to order some more. It's probably just the easy way of doing it. So I've got some blue. I'm just made temporary connections here. So we're over this side. So if we come up and then come up a little bit more, I can just sort of go down a little and straighten things out. Right. So here we have this little board. The green wire is the data wire. Yeah, turned out I thought I got something wrong. I've actually had to rewire this plug slightly. I thought yellow was the in and green was the out. It's actually green is the in and yellow is the out. All fun and games. So that's connected to that temporarily. I still need to print a base for it. I'm going to do that at some point in the next day or two. So I'm going to have to order some more wires. So the building is plugged in. So the building is just sitting there. So if I find the remote and switch on, layout powers up, as you can see the lights over to the side. This goes through its little self-test and its little boot up routine, and then the building lights. And that's lit up quite nicely. I'm just sort of, all right, it's at a slightly odd angle, just because of the wires coming out the bottom. But that's lit up. Now that is set to, I'm trying to think what the intensity setting is. It's set to about 1/4 of its intensity. and then that is half of that. So that is about an eighth as bright as they can get. And to be honest, that's plenty. That's plenty bright enough. And I think that works. I could probably do with putting some people inside or something on the upper floors, but that'll do. I'm quite pleased with that. That works. I haven't got it set up to do colour cycling or psychedelic effects. I need to have a think about how I'm actually going to drive this, but this is now working. So the next step is to actually install it. I need the wire for that because this little board here needs to be fitted under the layout. I'll have a little look actually, see where I can put it. Yeah, there's a beam I can stick that to, so that's not too big a deal. It's just got to be somewhere near enough to where the building is that this plug will reach it. And I'm hoping where I've just seen it will. If not, I'll have to find somewhere else to put it, but I'm sure I can live with that. And then I've got some holes to drill. I've got this to put in. I'm not going to glue the buildings in place just yet, because like I say, I might want to put some people in them, but I can just drill holes and sit them down. So that's it for today. Like I say, I was hoping I was going to get the rest of it done, but without the proper wires, I'm loath to run wires in the wrong colours because it'll confuse the hell out of me in a little while. So I'm going to leave it at that for this little session. I may add another little bit onto the end of this. We may do a bit of train running as well, just because why not. Otherwise, I'll catch you all in a bit. Yeah. So yes, that's the tail of the light. I was hoping to get a little bit more done. Yeah, I ran out of time. Anyway, I have subsequently ordered the wire, so when that turns out, we'll be fitting this, and they're going to carry on and do some more lighting in the background, which should help. But yeah. Meanwhile, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for all the comments. I do read them all. I try to respond. Yeah, it's nice to see people are actually watching this and commenting. Waiting for the J26 to crawl up very slowly. I haven't modified the automation system to use different speeds for the different locos yet, hence why this one is going quite slowly. But anyway, that's it for this video. I will catch you all in the next one. Likes, comments, shares, subscriptions, etc. are all more than welcome. Until then, thank you very much, and from Leopard Street, goodbye.